Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Creators Podcast. I am your host, Michael, a graphic designer, content creator, pizza eater, and work from homer. I'm laughing a little bit because my friend who is helping me co-host this episode is making fun of me. He's dancing in the background as I am speaking to you right now. So welcome to the podcast once again, our friend Yi. Hey, Yi.
Hey, how's it going? Happy to be back. That was a really, really solid intro, Michael. I actually, listening to you do it, I'm quite impressed by how smooth that was.
Thank you.
So we also are joined by another guest, a good friend of mine, Sabrina. Sabrina is someone that I've known for a long, long time. And I thought, you know what this show is missing? Someone who has a really, really amazing voice. And so...
Yes. Thank you.
So in any case, here's Sabrina. Sabrina, why don't you give the audience a quick intro about yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, well, hi guys. I don't know if I would say I have a really, really nice voice per se. Maybe I'm an interesting voice.
Well, definitely
yeah.
nicer than me and than mine at least.
Let's say as well.
Let me think. Okay, yeah, hi, I'm Sabrina Fest. I am a person who likes to do weird child animation voices, and that is part of my job. I'm a voice actor. And then, yeah, that's about it.
When you say weird child animation voiceover, what does that mean? You know.
Basically, like my forte, I like to think my forte and like my specialty is like 5 to 12-year-old kid voices and like voices that you would hear on like Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, like those sorts of the wackier TV shows where they're more characters and not like normal speaking voices, you know? It's like they've got like quirks about them. So that's what I do.
Interesting. How interesting. So let me ask you this one really question this question that's always been in my kind of like the back of my head. And the reason why I asked this is because I was telling Yi earlier that there are a couple of voice actors that I follow on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And I find it really, really fascinating how it's just the little changes that they make in their voices, the way they speak, even the timing, just completely changes like the personality. Like, I could close my eyes and I'm like, okay, this is a completely different person. So from my perspective, when I'm listening to it, it sounds like they're doing a lot of things, you know what I mean, to really differentiate the characters. But for you, is it a huge like change, a huge like you kind of have to really project that character? I know it's kind of like maybe it's too early in the podcast to be asking that, but it's
totally fine.
always just been curious about that. Like, do you just make little tweaks and then it's a completely different character, or you really have to put yourself in a very different mindset?
No, yeah. I mean, like, for me, it just really depends on the type of audition I get, you know, which network is it coming from? That way I can figure out like, oh, maybe it's a little bigger, or for like video games, you don't want it to be too big because it's a little more like realistic, or more natural sounding. And then does this person, where are they from? Do they have accents? Do they not? Anything about the drawing also helps me a lot. Like if I see that maybe they're smirking, so then I talk out of the side of my mouth a little more instead of like, you know, just like in front, which is going to sound a little different where you're placing it, right?
Right.
What kind of different quirks do they have? What age are they? All of these little things play into how I come up with a voice for a character, essentially.
How interesting.
Wow.
Does someone give you like direction when it comes to like the characters?
It depends. Like, so say you get an audition. They're like, here's the breakdown. They are 12 years old. And it's a girl. She's 12. She's a little rougher around the edges. She likes to play sports. She doesn't mind getting a scraped knee. She has a couple older brothers. And she's kind of like a wackadoodle personality. And so then I take all of that and I'm like, okay, so I'll age her down a little bit from my natural voice, which I already sound like I'm 12, so it's fine. Um, like naturally, I just sound like I'm 16, so that's cool. But then I age it down, and then I'm like, okay, we give her a little bit of rasp because she's like kind of cool, and you kind of like push it a little bit, and then you're like, ah, yeah, it's like totally cool. This is just me, and I'm like 12 now, but like I'm like kind of hardcore, you know? Like I'm like chill because I got these older brothers, so you're like, yeah. And so it's just like stuff like that.
That is so cool. I'm just like, I'm mind blown. I love just listening to that whole process in real time, and it's fun too because since we have the video element, you're physically changing your body.
Oh yeah,
right.
most definitely.
Facial
Yeah.
expressions and I bet like how you're like squeezing certain muscles to kind of get in that. That was well. Okay, before we dive really far into the process and technique, Sabrina, can you share with the audience like pieces that you've worked on or shows that you've worked on or anything that people might recognize just to give some background so you know what you've done.
Of course, legally, I can disclose a few things. So legally speaking, if we're thinking younger audiences, I'll go from younger to older audiences. For younger audiences, I did a guest star on Nickelodeon, The Loud House, which is like in its 6th season, I think. It also has a movie, like a live action movie that just came out or something like that, or is coming out. So I'm on The Loud House as a guest star, and my character's name was Melly Ramos. And I was like this really like shy girl who was like just really like scared of everything and didn't really talk a lot, and she was just like really scared. And so that was Melly, and I think the episode was called Community Disservice. So there's that.
Good.
And then recently there's this YouTube yep, that's how you say it. YouTube. Sorry, English. There's this YouTube web series about these dolls. They're called the OMG dolls, and now they're doing like animated stuff, and they have a movie and everything, and I'm Neonlicious, and Neonlicious is like super high energy, and she's just like, oh, everything is so cute, and she has a little kitty called Neon Kitty, and it's all like, hey babes, it's all like that sort of stuff. And then if we're going into older audiences, I do a lot of Netflix dubbing. So for shows like Control Z and Elite, those are like Spanish speaking TV shows, and I do the English voices for them, so that it's like, you know, if you like watch Squid Game, for example, how you could either watch it in, or if you watch any type of anime, right? You watch it in either, you can do it in Japanese in the regular language or whatever it is, the original language, and then they also have like the English dub version. So I just do it the opposite way for English speakers.
How cool.
Yeah.
Do you at all take any sort of like creative input from the other language? Like, for example, if you're dubbing Spanish, right? Like, do you take cues from the original voice actor, or do you come up with your own thing?
So it's kind of for anyone who's looking into getting into dubbing, right? What you do is it's kind of like karaoke. So you watch a screen and you look at the scene that you're doing, right? And you have to do every like inhalation, exhalation, mouth noise, or anything that the original actor does, right? But it's all timed out. So you have the English translation. You also need to make sure that, you know, your mouth is moving as quickly as the original actor, and especially for Spanish speakers, they speak very, very quickly, right? There's a lot of like mouth flappy that goes on. So you need to do that sort of thing, and it's just kind of like karaoke that way, where you are taking every single cue that they're doing. So if I notice they breathe in, then I also have to inhale. Or if they turn to the side and exhale and they're like, ah, then I also have to do the ah. So it's like that. But it's just karaoke, which is super fun.
This is why I can't do any of that. I can only focus on one thing at a time.
Well, you don't have to memorize.
Voice, you're acting.
Yeah, no, you don't have to memorize anything. So that's the awesome part, is that you can still read along, which is.
But I think that's the thing, though. Like,
scary.
Like for example, if I were to try to picture myself like in this very, very wacky version of myself that I'm actually acting, right? all I have to do is focus on myself, what I'm trying to project. But
Yeah.
you have to read that other person. It's almost like you're mimicking them,
Yeah.
but also inserting your own spin to it, right?
You kind of, well, in the world of dubbing, for example, I don't think about it as in I have to put my own spin to it. Like, I'm literally that person. I am their voice. So I feel like I actually don't have to do a lot because I'm just listening to how they say it first, and then I watch how they're reacting to it. And naturally, the more you do it, the more you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, I understand, because you're also saying the words along with the scene. You don't have to worry about your face, you just have to worry about your voice.
I see. Yeah,
So it's,
okay,
for me,
okay.
it's less, I feel like it's less work to do because then I don't actually focus on myself. I just completely focus on them.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So when you're doing the dubbing, do you try to match your voice to their voice, or do you just like, hey, I know my voice is different?
Yeah, so this is something that like casting does, right? Like everyone who
Okay.
is up in there, they say, okay, this is the character that we have. She's this old. She is a little shyer, right? She's like really mean. Apparently I do like mean girl voice pretty well because I always get cast for these like girls with a lot of attitude and who are just like, well, I don't think that's right. So, and you
So
can like talk to my,
girls with, like,
so you can go,
personality and sass.
yeah. So I get a lot of those. So it just depends on what they want. And honestly, you just speak with your natural voice is what I've done, and I notice it's still fine. So, and it doesn't 100. It's not like a voice match for the original character per se. It's just, do they think that voice matches that face?
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think we did get way too deep into
You-
like this conversation.
you got
I know.
way too deep.
Sorry, I got too excited.
It's like you have these questions like lined up in your head, and you're just like, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm going for the deep dive right now.
Yeah.
I'm just a curious guy, and this is like the first time we actually have a professional as a guest.
Oh,
So
yeah. I'm only slightly professional.
okay, so how about we start from the beginning, right? So
Okay.
like, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into this industry?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to USC, University of Southern California in Los Angeles, California. And I went for acting because that was obviously the super smart choice. And I was like, I want to do it. I love it. Which I still obviously very much do. I went in for acting. I was a young 18-year-old, had no idea anything about myself. I had no idea who I was. And then in your senior year, you have like electives, obviously, right? And I was super interested in voiceover because I loved commercials. I grew up watching the Sunday morning commercials and commercials. Oh my God, Sabrina. The Sunday morning cartoons. Cartoons. I know words.
I watch commercials too as a kid, so I don't.
I aspired to do good
That's
commercials.
true. That's just true. Yeah, I've done a few commercials too, but like mostly I do like animation. But back to the point. I took a class called voiceover acting, and I was like, I love comics and I love cartoons and anime, and that was like my life growing up, right? Sailor Moon, all of the Disney animated princesses, like everything that you could think of, like Pokemon. I still watch Pokemon sometimes because I like it. Yu-Gi-Oh, like I watched everything, right?
Yeah.
So I took this class and I was like, this is kind of fun. And then the more I took it, my teachers were like, hey, you're kind of good. And I was like, hey, I am kind of good. I was like, yeah.
I love it.
That's me.
I love
it. And then I was really, really fortunate to be signed by a relatively bigger agency here in the U.S., CESD, and they have an office here in Los Angeles and here and there in New York. And so my senior year, as I was about to graduate, I had been signed on with CESD, and they have multiple departments, including voiceover. They have a whole unit, like a whole department devoted to voiceover. So I sent in a couple of my things while we were like getting to know each other and meeting and that sort of thing. And then they were like, yeah, they just like kept sending me auditions after we signed and everything. And it's been like, I mean, it took me so long to book my first thing, honestly. If you're getting into voiceover, I almost feel like I almost feel like it's harder to get into voiceover than it is to like on-screen camera acting. But that's just
Yeah.
my personal, like that's just what I've experienced. Um, but
Can I
yeah, that's how I
ask
got started.
okay, thank you for sharing that. I
That was a lot.
also want to ask along that line of when you said that you feel like it's kind of hard. It's
Hmm.
harder maybe from your perspective. I also got the same impression, not because I tried, no, it's just
Hmm.
because as a kid, I realized that some of my favorite characters, growing up,
Hmm.
were did multiple voices, multiple
Oh yeah,
characters.
for sure. Yeah.
So I just assumed that the industry was very, very competitive in that sense that once you're in, like you get to try different roles because people don't see your face, you know what I mean? And you can
Yeah,
completely change
exactly.
into a different character. Yeah.
Which is awesome because then you're not limited to what you look like, right? And that's also been a huge change, especially nowadays. We're seeing all the auditions I get, it's like only read if you're actually this ethnicity, right? Which back then
Mm-hmm.
it was great because you weren't limited to that, so you could try out new roles and different things and try and connect to different characters that maybe you wouldn't have had the opportunity to have connected to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in the past, but now it's great because we have a little more representation, which is awesome. And for me, as someone who, like, on screen, people don't really know what I am just because I'm a little ethnically ambiguous. um, that, especially in the on camera industry, has been kind of limiting almost. Even though they really, really like ethnically ambiguous, it's also limiting because at first they don't really know what box to put you in. But if
Right.
you don't, if they don't have to pay attention to your face and just your voice, you're a lot less limited. For lots of voiceover actors, because in order to be a voiceover actor, I feel like you kind of have to have a lot of versatility, right? You can't just have two cool voices. Like, you have to have 20, an arsenal, right? Like a big
Mm-hmm.
toolbox. All of the voiceover artists that we grew up with, um, uh, just during our childhood, right? They all were voiced by the same people. Like
Right.
Tara
Yeah.
Strong, for example, right? She was Bubbles, and she's Raven in Teen Titans, and she was Harley Quinn and XYZ. Like, the list goes on and on and on, right? Or
Yeah.
Grey Delisle, who was Azula and Daphne, and like all these different crazy, amazing voices all come from one person. So that's why I feel like it's a little hard to get into the industry as like a bigger name, because
I
there's
see.
so many talented people and they will just reuse them. That's the
Yeah.
thing. You'll
Right.
just keep
Right.
reusing because it's like, well, we already know this person is awesome, and that way we don't have to go through the audition process again. Yeah, it costs a little more money, but like then we don't have to take time, and time is money, right? So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's so interesting, and I remember this problem that I had when I was growing up because
Mhm.
I used to be a big, I still am a big Transformers
Yeah.
fan. Peter Cullen is like the voiceover god to me. Every
Mhm.
time I hear his voice, I'm like, that's Optimus Prime. And so he voiced other intros for other cartoons. Where he just say,
I said
She did not.
Optimus. Optimus. I can't do it obviously because I'm not like that cool or grovelly, but that's my Optimus.
it's crazy. And that was the thing. Like, obviously, he's older, and I don't
Yeah.
know if he actually retired, but they had to pick someone else who could kind of imitate his voice, and it
Mhm.
just was not the same.
Yeah,
It's just like,
it's
yeah,
like for all the Avatar: The Last Airbender fans out there, heyo, it's like for um oh my god, Uncle Iroh. There we go. How the
mm-hmm,
original
mm-hmm.
voice actor, unfortunately passed away, right? And then they had to get another voice actor to replace him. And even though he does a great impression and he really honors the original voice actors, tone and flow and that sort of thing, it's just not 100% the same.
Right.
But that voiceover actor now has General Iroh. in his he's not General Iroh, it's technically Uncle Iroh because there's a second General Iroh, but that's fine. But he has that in his arsenal, right? But I'm sure that he can do a ton of different voices, right? And so
Yeah.
yeah. But it's pretty cool.
It's yeah, I just thought that the industry in itself is just so interesting, and it's just it's a lot more complex than, you know, the end product is simple, right? Like
Yeah.
people most of the time don't even recognize the voice behind the character. They just see the character and it's like, oh, this is the voice, and
Yeah.
that's him. So how do you feel about that? Like when people kind of worship these characters, right? Do you kind of feel like, oh, that was me? And do you I don't know, maybe it's just me.
Oh,
my
for sure. It's kind of cute.
you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like I would be like, that was me. Everyone, hey, you know, it's like, do you want me to do a
of
voicemail? You know,
course.
it's just,
Do you want me to do your voicemail?
that'll be totally me. So
It's like, I'll do it for free. I'll do it for free. Just like, let me do it for you.
No. Yeah, I mean, I always think it's so cool. Even now, you know, when my friends are like, "Oh my god, I was watching Elite and that's your voice and that's not your face, but that's your voice." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me. It's really cool, huh?" And then I have 11 nieces and nephews, right? And so they have watched things like my Loud House episode and the LOL dolls on YouTube and that sort of thing. And so when they're like, "Oh my god, that's Auntie, like that's Aunt Sabrina," I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. It is me." You know?
you're very popular in kids' parties, I'm sure.
Oh, I don't know. Who knows?
I was just trying to picture, like, hey, Auntie Sabrina, can you do the voice? I'm like, you know, if that
Yeah.
were me, I'll be like, okay.
Well, I mean, because I also have a lot of friends, because I used to do a lot of like Pokemon impressions, you know, like different Pokemon.
Like, yeah,
And-
like.
like I would do Pikachu and Jigglypuff and like Togepi, even though Togepi is pretty hard. But I do a lot of like the first gen sort of like Pokemon.
He's urging you on.
I'm
Awesome.
waiting for I'm waiting for these impressions.
demo.
Okay, well, like it's gonna be loud. So sorry, listeners, you might want to turn
You've been
down
warned.
your volume.
Yeah, listeners, you've been warned right now.
Yeah, but like for example, here we go. My Pikachu, because I was obsessed, right? I have a Pikachu plushie. I'd be like, "Oh my god, it's my Pikachu," and I'd be like, "Beep beep beep Pikachu, Pika Pika," and like that sort of stuff. And then yeah.
Oh my
It's like-
god, that is
That's dead on.
insane.
But like I was so obsessed with these cartoons at a young age that I also like to imitate a lot of things. So I'll imitate my friends a lot, right? And I draw a lot of inspiration just from people around me. I'll be like,
Right.
"Oh, this character, like this for this audition, this character is kind of like my friend. So maybe I'll just like pretend to be my friend for a second." You know, it's like totally chill. It is like kind of fun, right? Which is not me. I'm just I'm not as cool as that. But yeah.
Do you shut it off though in your head, like as a creative, like when you hear someone, when you see something, does it ever shut off, like that part of your brain? And you're like, oh, I can imitate that. Oh, I can totally draw from that person or that character.
No, I don't think it does. I think subconsciously my brain kind of just registers it. Like I don't think, "Oh, I want to imitate this person." My brain automatically is just like filtering it away. And then if I think, if I'm like, "Oh, this character reminds me of that one time I saw that person on the street that was like kind of crazy or whatever," then I just like remember that and I'm like, "Oh, it kind of sounds a little bit like this." And that same thing of like getting that the English words getting into their bodies. That's what I'm trying to do. Anyone who's watching this looks at
The
me and I look
persona,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I
yeah.
totally get that. Okay.
Getting
No,
it
'cause
into
it's
your
just
body
really-
is different, yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just really interesting because I feel that a lot of actors and comedians, like I think that one of their greatest skills is the ability to just observe, right? To observe, remember, and basically just have that register in their heads, and kind of like they have that little bank in their heads, like, okay, I like this one, and then later on when they need to draw from that, they just pick and choose and kind of just like mix and match and make it their own. So I just found that to be very fascinating because I'm a photographer. All I do is just take pictures. And I
Yeah.
feel like I'm cheating because all I have to do is like
You just
someone
look
else
back
has
and
to
you're
look
like, yeah.
nice, and I just click the camera. You know what I mean? It's not my job to make you look nice. Like you look nice already.
You
so.
look nice, and then I kind of make it look a little nicer with how I position
Yeah,
it.
it
Yeah.
pretty much. So, but I just think that that's so fascinating about like your ability, your skill to actually just observe and remember and find these little details that, I guess the average person wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's really cool.
I think it also is attributed to the fact that I speak more than one language, right? Like I speak English, but I also speak Mandarin Chinese because my mom's Chinese, and then I also speak Spanish, even though it's not as good, and I'm still working on it. I speak Spanish because my dad's from Mexico, and so I think being able to the fact that I have these different languages and cultures, and the way that you speak in different languages, your mouth placement changes and your lips change and where you touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth changes and all that sort of stuff. I think that has really helped me with these imitations, for example, because I had to imitate my parents and change the way that I spoke English, right? I had to speak a different language and I had to imitate them, and then I had to imitate, the friends around me and the environment that I was in. So I think that all really helped shape me to be able to be more versatile in the way that I do things. And I also like loved accents when I was younger. Like I would read those Harry Potter books and I would like read it out loud, but with like my very shoddy at the time, my very shoddy British accent. I'd be like, I'm Hermione, blah, 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 and like all that stuff. But I've always liked imitating and like that sort of stuff from a young age. And I think language has really helped me with that.
I can see that. Yeah, I can understand that. I'm also bilingual, so I understand the whole like kind of being malleable enough to make yourself sound a certain way. And so when you said that, I'm like, okay, yeah, that does make sense. So I see how that can definitely help. You mentioned you just said that your English accent, your British accent was a little bit shoddy before. How do
Oh,
you
yeah.
feel about it now?
Well, I had to take a fun fact that you get to a fun thing you get to do in acting when you're an acting major is you get to take dialect classes, right? So I took a dialect class because I wanted to, and we did things like English, like American dialects, so like Southern or Eastern, like the New Yorkie, or like even the more Appalachian sort of thing, where they have like longer A's and that sort of thing. And then we also did like a British accent because if you're doing theater, then you're probably going to do Shakespeare at some time. So you
Right.
best learn an English accent, right? So yeah, I did a
How
lot
many
of those.
how many accents can you do? Top of your head.
Okay, so like I think I
Are we
can
about
do.
to have her go through a whole accent reel live?
I feel-
Because
I
I'm
feel so
really
bad.
down for this. I'm
I
really down
feel-
for this.
I'm just gonna apologize to anyone who actually speaks has these accents because they're not 100% like perfect, but we could try.
Let's try it. Yi is just he's just relaxed, sitting back and just enjoying the show.
I know. I feel like I'm watching the best live entertainment possible.
I'm
because this
so
is-
entertaining. Thank
Because
you.
I was even thinking like you know what, maybe we have Sabrina record the intro for the next season of Coffee with Creators because there's
Coffee
so
with
much
creators. Ooh.
yeah, there's so much personality behind it. Like, oh my
is, yeah.
goodness.
I'd be like, who's this weird, quirky girl? But okay, if we're thinking like the US, right? I can't do Canada because Canada's a little too similar, and I still haven't understood how to wrap my head around their vowels. Even though I have a lot of Canadian friends, which is weird. But if we're thinking the US, then if you're thinking Southern, but like Texas Southern, so they have
Okay.
harder R's when they talk. Oh God, now I need to think of a sentence. Now I have to get into it. Why? Okay. Oh, here's another thing. If I try and think of an accent to do, my mouth will not do that accent. It'll do a different accent. So like, for example, if I'm thinking like, oh, I want to do a British accent, and instead do like something very more received pronunciation and very more like the Queen's English sort of accent. Instead, I might slip into something that's a little further off, that's not as refined, and it's a little, I don't know, even northern, like Irish or something, but it's not exactly what I want. But then when I think Irish, then I come down and then I am suddenly doing an Australian accent, which is not that great either. But I've been watching a lot of H2O, which is like, I don't know if you guys remember, you probably don't, but it was a lot of these mermaids, and it was about Cleo and Emma and Ricky, and it was all these sort of different things. And my voice will naturally sort of switch into different accents, and I have no idea what goes on a lot of the time. So when people ask me like, do this accent, I'm like, and I have no idea what goes on.
You have to kind of roll into it. It seems
Yeah,
like.
I really do. I have to get into it, because otherwise, you know, my body doesn't really know what to do. And a lot of the times, like, I remember there was this one interview with Margot Robbie where she was like doing the thing for, I think it was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or something, or Wolf of Wall Street or something like that. And she was like, you have to get into the personalities. Weird. You have to get into the personality of things. And so she would pretend that she was doing her nails at the salon. And so she's like now a Jersey girl, and it kind of naturally comes out when you do it like that, right? And then if you want to go more Southern Belle, then you have to think, I don't even know. What do you think? But you think random things and you're like, like, why, this is the most wonderful thing I'd ever experienced in my life. Sweetie, I just think you should come in for a cup of tea, and we'll just have a grand old time now, won't we? Oh. And it's like weird things. I can't do it unless I have a script in front of me. So
Right,
it's
yeah.
really odd.
I mean, you did really, really well.
I think
you.
I think it's a wrap. I don't know. I don't know what else we can do right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we actually had 5 guests today.
Yeah, yeah, that
5
was
different people.
that was so enjoyable. Honestly,
was so enjoyable, yeah.
I'm like
You met
blown
all my
away.
personalities.
I know. That's
But all your all these characters that you play, that you played before, are they somewhat in line with who you really are, like your personality, like bubbly, fun sort of thing?
Yeah.
Or do you ever get projects that are like way off, and it was in a way could be fun too?
Yeah, for sure. Like I get hundreds of auditions, right? And that's the thing. Like, you get 500 auditions and you get 1 callback. I don't know if that's like a great percentage. I don't think it is, but that's just me.
it's not ideal, I would say.
It's not ideal, but that's me. So thoughts. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I had to get back in my thoughts. When nope, just kidding. I lost it. What was your question? Sorry. I feel like I'm so over the place.
I love it. Have you played characters that were a little bit different from what you were used to?
Yes. 100%. I haven't played a character yet that's different from me. But in the audition process, for example, like, I tend to get characters that are more my natural speaking tone. So like higher and a little bubblier and like kind of cutesy, et cetera, right? But I get a bunch of auditions, for example, video games, right? I am not a strong 6-foot-tall Amazonian woman who wields the power of the universe in a, that's not me. Or any of that. But I have to think, okay, if I was this person and I was in control and I had all of this pressure on me, like, what would I sound like? Or if I'm a magical fairy elf, like, would I maybe sound a little softer and a little more whimsical? And there's not that much change in your voice, but it's just a different, it's like that Shrek saying where he's like, peel back another layer, you're like an onion, you peel back another layer, origami. So yeah, I just always reference Shrek because I think that's 100% correct. When it comes to voiceover acting, it's another layer. Ooh. But yeah.
Have you had to turn down roles just because they're just way too off?
Oh, heck no. I wish I could turn on roles.
At
Oh.
500.
Wow, that seemed like such a sore spot of, hey, have you ever turned down a job? And she's like, what do you mean turn down a
I'm
job?
I would never.
What is this luxury that you're talking about of turning down a
No.
job?
A few auditions I have turned, or I haven't like submitted a few auditions. For example, if I give every audition a go, and doesn't matter how different it is from me, I will always try it just to see, oh, is this something that I can maybe do in the future? Or this is another layer that I didn't know I had of my onion. And so then I will try everything, but sometimes it's like, I don't think ethnically I'm right for the role, or I just can't connect with the characters, so it doesn't feel authentic, or sometimes you just listen to yourself over and over and then you just hate how you sound, and then you're like, well, I guess we're not doing this. And then you just move on. But thankfully, I have so many different opportunities that the ones that I do pass up on is like maybe 1% of the auditions that I get. I try my hand at everything, but it doesn't
That's
always
awesome.
work.
That really is awesome. And the only reason I asked that is because I find myself like imagining what if, say, for example, okay, like I would love to play a villain. If I were in a movie, I would love to play a villain just because that's not me, right?
Yeah.
Or at least that's what they think. But no.
I'm the nicest sounding villain of them all.
I am
like
evil.
for example, the characters from Game of Thrones, for
Yeah.
example. And I remember this the first time I saw Game of Thrones, I'm like, man, they use the C word a lot. Like they swear a lot. And it's like, what if I'm not that person? Like I'm not used to swearing. Like if I cuss in front of Yi, he's gonna be like, what's wrong with you?
Excuse me.
That's
sorry.
not true. You cursed earlier when we were talking before the show.
Oh my god, the secrets have been revealed.
I use choice words. Yi.
I don't know why you're trying to act like, oh, I don't swear. You literally swore like 45 minutes ago.
But not like a sailor, not like my wife. So
Yeah.
Wow,
No, I totally get
calling
it.
out your wife.
Oh yeah, you should. I should bring her into the podcast because everything will just be a bunch of bleeps.
Bleep, bleep,
Oh my
bleep,
gosh.
bleep, bleep. Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I understand what you're talking about, Michael.
Right.
For sure. Like, for example, how old are these listeners?
They're young professionals, just like
Okay,
us.
They're not kids.
For
They're not
example,
kids.
like for
Don't worry.
example, if you watch like the Netflix shows like Control Z and Elite, for example, they are raunchy. There's a lot of
yeah.
like nasty time going on, and I have to stand there in the studio watching them doing the jiggity boom boom, and I have to be like, okay, now breathe heavy and moan at this point and say these words, and it kind of becomes your job, and it's separate from you, right? Because this isn't
Okay.
you, this is the character. That's
Yeah.
Right.
Ari talking and having sex. That's not me. So it's different, right? There's that
That's
sort of
tough.
separation. Yeah, it
That's
is.
tough.
Because I don't swear like a sailor, I don't think. But like there are games, right? In certain games, like the multiplayer games and the RPG games, those thingies, where there's a bit of language that goes on, and so you have to be like saying bleep 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 bleep. Rah, 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 bleep. Obviously that's exactly how it sounds, and that's why I'm in so many video games. But yeah,
Wait, so
I understand.
you have done video game voiceover?
I have not booked a video game
but
voiceover,
okay.
but I do like I audition for them frequently.
Oh, okay. I see.
I'm looking forward to the video game. The next,
Where I go bleep bleep bleep, rage bleep. Yeah,
I know that person.
Yeah.
That's her. Wait a second. Yep,
I
that's
look
me.
forward to the day where one day Michael and I, one of us, will be playing a game and we text the other person and say, "Dude, I'm pretty sure that is Sabrina."
That's Sabrina.
Or you like look it up and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
That's awesome. So it seems like from the story that we've gotten so far from you is that it was kind of like you just happened upon this industry and you ended up really liking it.
Yeah.
So is that what you see yourself doing from this point on until maybe the
For
near future at least?
sure.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
freaking love voiceover. It is everything that I dreamed of. Because, like, as a kid, you're like, when you watch those cartoons, you're like, oh, it'd be so cool to be like a superhero, right? But you can't in real life because sadly that doesn't exist. But you can in animation because it's like different, right? And
Yes.
so, God, like I remember watching Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and I was like, man, if there's
I
one
love
superhero,
that show.
I know. I was like, I love it so much. I get really hyped. Anyways, if there, I was like, God, if there's one character I wish I could be Shahira, Hawk Girl. She's like my babe.
She is pretty
right?
badass.
She's
She is
kind of
pretty badass, yeah.
amazing. I love Hawk Girl. I will support her to the end. She is my everything. And but you know, in real life you can't do that. But in voiceover you can, and you can be a superhero that flies and has like a giant like mace and stuff, and that's super cool, right? So I love voiceover, and I wish to do it for the rest of my life. If obviously I would prefer if I can have some of my career be on screen, right? That's kind of what I went to school for, and that's what I first loved doing, right? I first fell in love with musical theater. That's what I did, and that's what spurred me on to doing theater at university. But I don't know, I just happened to take this one class and I really, really loved it. And I happened to be kind of okay at it, where people would be like, yeah, I guess we'll pay you so that you can say some words and then we can make you into a weird character. I'm like, yeah. So,
You know,
but yeah.
somebody said that. I think it was James Clear, one of my favorite authors, and he said that it's not necessarily about being the best at something. It's just being able to do something that that most others won't. It's like I don't want to use the word pain, but it's almost like for other people it's painful to do whatever it is that you're doing, but for you it's a little bit easier. And
Oh,
people are
yeah.
willing to pay for that. You know what I mean? So I think that's really like the secret to it, like to succeed in whatever field that you're in. And so
Yeah.
it seems like from what you've told us so far is that you did find your thing, which is very, very in today's world, I would say hard, not impossible. It's just a little bit more difficult because there's so many things out there that's inspiring, that's like that we all aspire to be like, or land into. And I'm just happy to hear that in your case you really enjoy it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it seems like
I'm
you found your
very
thing.
lucky. Yeah, I always feel very lucky because I know without a doubt that like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Of course, it's not the only thing. That's not my only income because I'm not that cool yet. But if anyone wants to hire me, please do. Yeah.
Hire
Um,
Sabrina. Hire Sabrina.
Yeah. Everyone hire her right now.
hire me. I'm
She's
kind of cool.
awesome.
I'm like
She's
kind of fun
awesome.
sometimes. But you know, I know that there's this one thing that I'm slightly good at, and I love. It doesn't feel like work for me. Like after this, I have like 3-4 auditions that I'm gonna record, and I can stay in my little booth that I built. I can stay in my booth for like 3-4 hours, and it doesn't feel like work to me, right? I'm playing. I'm literally playing. And yeah,
Oh, I
okay,
love that.
yeah. I think it's the best thing, the best career that I could ever have is that I get to play all day, right?
I love that.
And so even though other people will be like, oh, but don't you get tired? Yeah, of course I get tired, but it's fun because I get to create and I get to think of new, weird, wacky voices for all these wacky characters that maybe one day young kids will be like, gosh darn it, you know what? That show shaped my childhood. And I'll be like, holy heck, I love you. Thank you. you know? So yeah, I
great.
feel lucky. I feel very, very lucky.
I love that. I definitely love that. So I'm sure a lot of listeners who are listening to this, there's some of them who might want to be, who want to take the same route, right? Like they want to be voice actors, but
Yeah.
they probably just don't know where to start. What would be your one advice to them? Like what should they do?
I would say if you don't know where to start, literally just there are voiceover classes that you can take And I know they're online now too, right? Like you don't all you have to have is a mic. You can get a really nice starter mic for like if you make an investment of $150. I think Yi has the Blue Yeti, right? And it's a great like starter microphone. And it's not $1,000, but like it does the job, right? Especially if you're just trying to get into it. I would say go into a class and take a class first. In that class, if it's a good class, hopefully, what you'll end up creating is a reel. It's what we call a voiceover demo reel, right? Depending on if you want to do commercial or if you want to do animation, the way that you approach those are completely different, right? Even with gaming is completely different, right? I would say just take a class and just do it. That's like my best advice. Take a class. And I know it's an investment, but if it's something that you really, really want to do, go for it.
You're investing in yourself.
Exactly.
So that's worth it. Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever taught other people in terms of voiceover?
I have, like, so my friends, for example, I have a couple friends from USC, like we all took the class together or whatever. A few of my acting friends are like, hey, I have questions for you. Can you listen to my reel? Or can you listen to my reel or my audition XYZ, whatever it is? Can you listen to this and give me feedback? And I'm like, of course, yeah, sure, for sure, yeah, of course. And so I'll listen to it. I'll give feedback. I'll be like, okay, well, what is the character? And I'll see, like, the sides or whatever. I'll be like, you know what? I think you can maybe elevate this a little more, or is that really a question? Make it your own. What do you think you should do? Should you add maybe like a giggle at the front? It's like very little things, but I will definitely always listen to my friends because they always listen to me, right? So, or anyone.
Yeah.
You just send your stuff my way and I'll listen to it and I'll tell you what I think.
No. I don't think we want to encourage internet strangers to start sending you
just kidding.
voice
Just kidding. Don't send me stuff. If you
let's-
know me and if I know you, then you can.
Then it's okay.
Yeah, this
But
is
if
where
I don't know
we
you,
run
that's
into the
weird.
classic problem of a person being just too nice.
I know, she's
Sorry.
way
for
too
the
nice.
internet, and she's gonna end up in
Sorry,
a
internet.
world of trouble, being like, "Yeah, just send it in my way, and then
Sorry,
I'll
internet.
listen to it."
I take
Well,
it
I
back,
gotta say-
internet. I'm sorry.
I gotta say this. This has got to be one of the most fun episodes I've ever done in Coffee Creators. It's just super fun. It's super fun to have someone like you, who's just really full of energy. I can like earlier when I turn on the camera, I'm like, I'm gonna need my tea. It's raining outside. It's a little gloomy.
Yeah, my tea
but
too.
you kind of just like, yeah, got rid of that whole thing. And Yi too. Yi wasn't really feeling it this morning. He was telling me, but
Not because of you, but because I just got my booster.
It's all because of me.
And
Okay.
I got my booster, and I've been knocked out. I've been sleeping the whole day in preparation for this podcast. I was like, I
Wow.
need to have the right energy for it. But no, I mean, Michael's he's dead on. Sabrina, I love like I think your personality carries the entire
You
way.
guys,
Right.
you're so sweet.
We
Oh my
were-
god. Stop.
we were so worried. We were like, okay, we have to make sure that we have enough energy to carry this conversation. Now, you pretty much did the whole thing. We
Yeah.
just
Ah,
sat there.
thanks. Yeah, I have a pretty like voice, where they're like, that's kind of fun. Yeah, that's why I think I'm most suited for children's animation because they're like, if it's for like an announcer, like what am I thinking? Like Blue's Clues, how the guys have to be the Blue's Clues, the Steve, the Joe, I can't remember what the newest guy's name is, but it's like, come on, kids, let's go and do this, that, and the other, or whatever. And for like other like Nick Jr. shows where it's like, let's play this, kids, and let's do this activity, and all that stuff. And for other people, it's like a lot of energy draining from them because they have to keep it so high up. I don't know. For me, I'm just like, yeah, let's do this.
That's her 24/7. She's like, I got this. Yeah.
Afterwards, of course, I'm like, but during it, I'm totally fine.
No, I can imagine them be like, that was what a great character. And Sabrina's like, what character?
That was just me.
What are you talking about? That's how I
I just had a
am.
cup of tea. Had a little more energy this morning.
That's awesome. Well, Sabrina, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast today. And I know you have a busy schedule. I know you've got some recordings to do
No,
today.
heck, it's fine.
But
She's like, I'll stay as long as you want.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you if you could share with the listeners where they could find you, or maybe they could, I don't know. Well, okay, everyone, I know she's very friendly. I know she said send her your stuff. Don't do
Maybe
that.
don't.
But are they okay to ask you some questions if they have any?
Of course, like if anyone ever has questions, just like you can find me on the social media, or I guess I don't know. Is like giving out an email weird? I guess an email feels more like
where can people
regal.
find you? Where can people find you on social media? That's probably the
On
easiest
social
one.
media. I feel like this is weird, but my Instagram handle, which is kind of I guess what a lot of people give out these days, my Instagram is Subway Muffin, like Subway sandwiches and like a muffin that you eat.
It
Right?
sounds like a cartoon.
Yeah, so funny little story for like 2 seconds. When I was younger, the leader of like my friend group, like, you know, because we all had like our little groups or whatever, the leader of my friend group was like, let's give each other nicknames. And we were like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do it. And so then because I brought those like Pillsbury Funfetti cupcakes when it was my birthday, I'd be like, celebrate my birthday with me, guys. Here's some cupcakes. Ooh. I'd be like, yeah, we should name me Cupcake or Muffin. So they started calling me Muffin. But then I was like, I'll be Muffin for my nickname. And then they were like, well, your name doesn't start with an M, so we can't call you Muffin, because I had a friend, Marcela, who was like M, and we can't call, it's just, it got confusing for us, like, 7-year-olds. So then I was like, well, I like eating Subway sandwiches, and that starts with an S. So then they just started calling me Subway. And like to this day, some of like my old high school friends will still call me. I still respond to Subway. Like they're like, "Hey Subway," I'm like, "Hey." It's just that's just you know, it's just it's stuck for the rest of my life. So then when I was like 15 and made an Instagram, I was like, I'm gonna make it cool. I'm gonna make my nickname so it's Subway Muffin.
I just want to say, you know, you can change your handle, right?
Yeah, but now I feel
Okay.
like I feel like I've gone too far now,
Yeah,
right?
too far.
Like
Sure,
where-
sure.
and people,
Sure.
I feel like people won't remember. Oh, it's Sabrina Fest, even though I feel like my reps want me to change it, so it's you know how they're like, this is the real checkmark,
Yeah.
official,
Yeah.
verified,
Yeah.
You're
right?
verified, yeah.
But then I'm like, but every time someone's like Subway Muffin, that's so weird. Then it sticks with them, and then they remember that.
Actually,
And they
that
won't
is
remember
true.
Sabrina Fest. They'll remember, who's that weirdo who has Subway Muffin? Like, what the heck? You know? So I feel like I've just dragged it on too long, and now it just needs to stay that.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
calling someone a different name, and then
Mm-hmm.
you've done that for so many days, for so many weeks. Now at some point you kind of just have to, or no, actually, someone calling you a different name, and you said hi, you responded, and then you kind of committed to it. And you're like, okay, I
And then
guess
you're like,
now
that's
my name is
not
Matt.
my name, but yeah, sure. But yeah, that's my
awesome.
social.
Yeah.
So if you guys have questions, don't be weird. But if you have like actual questions, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, for
Awesome.
sure. All right. Well, thank you again for again, like I said, for finding the time to be on this
Of
podcast,
course, yeah.
Sabrina. You are always welcome to come back if you find yourself, you know, free with a little bit of time.
That's so cute.
well,
Thank you.
No, yeah, we really, really do appreciate it, and we actually did enjoy. I'm gonna speak for myself. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was fun. I wish I could. I wish we could prolong this, but obviously schedules won't permit that. But especially now because I have to go get my daughter. But
You should probably
thank
do
you
that.
so much. Oh yeah, I know.
course.
She's my wife was actually just calling me right now. She's like, "Are you on your
Excuse
way?"
me.
So I probably
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well,
no. His wife is actually saying, "Where the fuck are you?"
Where the bleep?
oh my god. So
She's gonna listen to this episode and be like, "Excuse me,
yeah,
how
seriously.
dare you paint me in a bad light?" But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Sabrina,
Of
and thank you
course,
again
thanks for
Yi,
having
being
me.
absolutely
Yes.
fun. Just a little bit of reminder for everyone, please support the show by subscribing and also sharing this with your friends and your family. You can email us at coffeewithcreatorspodcast@gmail.com, or you can also DM us on Instagram at coffeewcreators. Thank you for listening to the Coffee with Creators podcast, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have less than 100 subscribers, and if we do reach 100, we can have our custom URL.
Oh my God.
Anyway, yeah, oh my god. Well, thank you so much for this episode, for listening, and I hope to see you guys again pretty soon. One more episode before the year ends. So
Bye.
thank you guys. See you guys around. Bye.
Bye.